Ooh, the most above average podcast in the galaxy.
Turn the light off, like your memory
Before we start today's podcast, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you. The most above average podcast in the galaxy is not sponsored by anyone. Everything that you see and hear is paid for directly by us. We do, however, have affiliate links, and the money that comes in from those affiliates does help pay for us to have more hosting platforms, better equipment so you can hear us better, so you can see us better. The money that comes in from that is just icing on the cake. We do this out of the pure love of just chit-chatting with each other and bringing on guests. If you would like for the show to continue, we ask you to support the ones that support us. Again, all the links are in the bio. And thank you, and we hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the most above average podcast in the galaxy. Like always, I am your host, Coach Eric. Unfortunately, Josh could not be with us today. Earlier today, I received a phone call from his brother saying that the other day Josh was at a police auction and purchased one of those mystery pallets. When the pallet was delivered to his home and he opened it, it turned out that it was an entire pallet confiscated from P. Diddy of baby lotion, and all the bottles exploded, and for the past 2 days, Josh has been slipping around in his house. So hopefully someone can go over there and sprinkle some kitty litter on him and get him some traction. And hopefully he'll be with us next time. But until then, in the words of the great Missy Elliott, get your freak on.
That's a legitimate excuse.
Now, today we are joined by my good friend, Brad Rowe, also known as the Electrician. Now, Brad, you have such a unique history, and I don't want to dive into every little nook and cranny, but there's so many cool things that it's almost impossible not to. So, no bodybuilder is ever fully retired. You have retired from competing, but we love the gym. You know, you still put your health as number one priority. You know, having big muscles is always a good time too. But I want to backtrack it a little bit. Can you give me a brief rundown? How did you get into bodybuilding? Because bodybuilding is a very unique sport. I know early on you did a little bit of football and some stuff, but walk me through that. How did that come about?
Yeah. I tell people all the time, like, bodybuilding fell in my lap. It wasn't anything that I ever wanted to pursue. It wasn't like a childhood dream of mine, nothing. I was an athlete first and foremost. And, people kind of tie me into being a bodybuilder because that's what I made, a big chunk of my career from. But the thing I identify with the most is being an athlete. So like, if I had my choice of being jacked or athletic, I'm choosing athletic every day. So being a football player, being an athlete, I was in the gym from an early age, probably like 13. My older cousin dragged me into the gym for the first time. So like, weights have always been part of my life. And, when you're younger, especially those day and ages, and like, I graduated in 2002 from high school. So you're talking the late 90s, early 2000s. There wasn't a lot of focus on strength and conditioning like how it is today of how you should perform. It was more just bench, squat, deadlift. We did bro splits, getting ready for sports. So like, I'd always had a pretty decent physique. Went through college, played ball in college. Actually gave up the end of my football career to focus on going to medical school. So I walked away from that, went to grad school, and was on the pursuit of being a doctor. And through that time, I took a year off after grad school. I was broke, and a fitness modeling agency found me on MySpace and asked me if I'd be interested in fitness modeling. Also at the same time, Ed Connors had reached out. If those people don't know who Ed is, Ed found, Cutler, Cena, Ultimate Warrior. I mean, every pretty much prominent bodybuilder in the scene, Ed had hands in their lives. But I thought Ed was just some old creepy dude, so I totally ignored him and answered this fitness modeling agencies thing. And they're like, hey, you can get paid to do this. I was like, all right, whatever. One thing leads to another. I'm booking magazine shoots left and right, booking national commercials, get a sponsorship before I even stepped on stage. And, I hit a point where I was like, you know what? Let me just see where I can pursue with this. So I told my family I was going to put med school on hold for like a 3-year period and move to California and just see where this life takes me. So that's how I got into bodybuilding.
There's so many things that I want to go with that, but I want to go back to that. You and I are both very old. We're old school bodybuilders. We
Yeah.
got into bodybuilding when you didn't have to be likable. You just had to be good. You know, social media wasn't a thing, so people weren't involved in your day-to-day life so much. While social media can really help drive yourself to a new level of financial success, it's really hard to balance things, and balancing from the character that you are putting forth for the internet versus normal life. And sometimes it's the same thing, but sometimes people have a character that they portray to the public and then they're different behind closed doors. When you are a public figure and people are so invested in you because you have become your own brand, was there ever a moment that you felt that it was hard to keep the fans involved with what's going on because they're emotionally invested into you, but there's sometimes maybe you didn't want to share certain things, but you felt semi-obligated to?
I mean, for me personally, it was just every bit of social media. I hated the idea of it. I just want to walk in the gym and work out. I don't want to worry about filming the set. I don't worry about any of that other bullshit. I don't want to worry about selling supplements or anything. I just want to put the goddamn work in, and that was my mindset. And so like Instagram had just come out when I had gotten to bodybuilding, and when I signed with Universal, they forced the hand, like, you have to do this, and it was this new thing. And I was so rejected of it. At least I had my ex-wife who like would kind of push me to do things here and there, but it went against everything that I was about. I was about just put the work in and let your effort and your results, speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Not putting on this fake persona. And like, especially early on in social media, you saw a lot of guys that put on this fake character. And that was to me, you're just a sellout, man. Like, just be you, be authentically you. If people don't like you for you, then you're not going to make it anywhere in life. If you don't like you, you're not going to make it anywhere in life. So at least everything I did post was real and authentic. And there's things I look back that I posted, like when I was just this miserable cunt of a focused bodybuilder that I wish I didn't put out there, but that was me at the time. And that kind of harnessed my emotions and who I was. And I'm still struggling this day and age with social media. There was I went through a period, when I stepped away from bodybuilding, of trying to cut myself from that identity from bodybuilding, trying to cut myself from social media. And like you said, like when I first got into bodybuilding, it was, you got contracts based on how you placed, not how many likes you got, not how many supplements you sell or anything. And then it converted and it went to, what is your value to the brand? How many likes can you get on this? How many comments can you get on this? How many products can you sell? So your worth, your value was based off everything you posted. And I'm still struggling with that because the type of content, the things I'm trying to do at this point in my life is trying to make an impact in the world. And I'm still caught up in this perfectionism of like, everything I post has to get so many likes, has to get so many comments. I don't like how I look here because my entire life has been this perfectionist mentality of everything I put out. Even though it's authentically me, it's the best version of me, which you need to on social media. And so like, I've been holding myself back from posting, I think, a lot of valuable content for people because I still have this hang up of that my identity belongs to, how many likes and comments and views and things I get on social media. So there's so many benefits to it, but to me, there's still a lot of negatives to the social media aspect of the life.
It's so frustrating because you can see, especially from a business standpoint, how this can be beneficial. Like, put yourself in the other shoe. You were the supplement company.
Right.
In modern day time, why would I give one guy $100,000 a year contract when I can just give 1,000 nobodies affiliate codes. They're going to do the marketing for me,
Right.
and they're going to make me more money. So I can always make the argument for both sides, but when you see true talent, like, you and I have been in this industry for way too long, and we've seen incredible athletes that go completely unnoticed because they either don't know how to market themselves, or maybe they are just in the love of the sport, but have no aspirations on stepping on stage. We see that all the time.
Right.
We see it with coaches too. I'm sure that you and I could both name 10 amazing coaches that we really enjoy and respect that no one's ever heard of before.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I'm gonna skip a little ahead from my notes. So pardon my eyes looking the other way. I had all these questions in my head. I was like, this is how I'm going to structure. And then I was like, nope, that went right out the fucking window. So,
He just threw me out of a loop.
yep, that's okay. We adapt, we overcome.
Yeah.
So the constant need for perfection, and I don't want to say acceptance, but when people feel that you have value, I see a lot of people get addicted to that value feeling. Someone tells you that they're proud of you. Someone tells you good job. And, not everyone has a great childhood, whatever it may be. They get, a slew of different bad relationships, partners that don't respect them, whatever it may be. And so I see that a lot. People are constantly just grasping at every straw, trying to find some kind of value, some kind of love. And I see, I always got to watch how I word this. I'm a very competitive person, and no one hates losing more than me. I don't throw a gigantic fit and throw shit, but I definitely emotionally will shut down and be like, this is bullshit. And so I try to make sure that I don't have that version of myself when it comes to my kid. I want her to do well. I want her to be, aggressive in certain sports, but within reason. And I don't want to be the trophy dad. I don't want to be, this is your life. You have to practice 24/7 and your social circle is non-existent. And so she got into riding horses really early on, before she could even walk. And so she's done, this kid has done everything for horses. We got her involved in vaulting, which is essentially gymnastics on a horse. And so to be a parent, to watch your 8-year-old child stand on a horse while it is running it's terrifying. She's like, did you watch? I'm like, I can't do it, dude. I cannot watch you. It scares the shit out of me. But you got involved with riding horses pretty early on. What, people who don't deal with the equestrian world, what did you ride? Are you English? Are you Western? What do you do?
I was English, rode saddlebreds and Morgans. At one point I placed third at the world championships when I was like 12. My dad was a horse trainer, and that was his whole life, and that was his biggest dream. So whenever I was with my dad, my parents were divorced. So when I was with dad, my whole life was involved in horses. And, there's so much beauty to him. But like, as soon as you said that, I was like, all right, yeah. Like, the horse people become overly obsessive, and it's a whole cult. So, but it's also so beautiful to be around these magnificently powerful animals who are just so gentle and so skittish at times as well. So it was an amazing part of my life. And but that also started with the extreme performative part of my life too, because I was riding competitively at a very young age. And dad lived vicariously through me. So it was I had to be perfection at all times.
Yeah. Horses are such amazing creatures, and the sport itself is amazing. I'm friends with Doug Champion, I always tell him, like, you're the cowboy version of me. He coaches professional rodeo riders.
Yeah.
And he's so fascinating, and he's just so humble. He was like, I do cool shit. I'm like, no, that's my line. I say that. You legitimately do cool shit.
Yeah.
But being around horses, especially at an early age, it really tests your patience, your skill, but your willingness to commit to something to that level, because now you're not only caring for another animal, but the presentation in an English saddle is very, very different than a Western saddle. And people that have seen dressage on TV, and they're just like, oh, look at him. He's got such great posture, and the horse is doing all this fun stuff. Like, the level of control that you as a rider have to have is mind blowing. And the level of skill and years of practice that it takes, if more people could just spend even a day at a horse facility, their minds would be blown. Because it's, if you've never seen a rider get off a horse and their abs are not completely just in cramping sore level,
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
But
like you said, people don't realize. I mean, that literally, like, so I was saddle seat, equitation, and so literally my class was, how can I look absolutely perfect on this horse, absolute perfect posture, look like I'm doing everything so effortlessly, and make this high performing horse perform in such perfection and make it look so effortless. Like I said, it's like you see it and it looks easy, but there is so much work, so much effort and time that needs to be committed to this in order to make it look like it does when you just see it from an outside perspective. And so that's definitely one of the starts to being the perfectionism that screwed up a lot of my life.
I can hear my mother yelling, "Rains down."
Yeah, right.
Okay, I got it. But so I wanted to dive into, I brought that up for this very long circle to come back to the development of this need for perfection. You start very early on with horses, which then, you get into the fitness modeling, you get into the competition. And when you become your own billboard for your business in the fitness world, there's even more pressure to be presentable. Obviously, this is a very hard thing to deal with, but was it easier because it started earlier, so it just became essentially second nature? Or was this something that you battled with from an early age? Because, the outfits that you wear for horse competition need to be extremely clean. There cannot be a wrinkle. There cannot be a fiber of dust on it. It's perfection to the T. You go into the fitness modeling world, your body is now the outfit. It has to be perfect. You have to be lean. Muscle bellies have to be full, but they have to be dry so everything is visible. You have to be this constant, almost perfection to someone else's standards. How do you deal with this? Is this something that even crosses your mind, or you're just like, hey, you know what? I look good naked and I get paid?
Like I said, it was imprinted me from an early age, and that's beyond just the horse riding. Like, my mom, never let me leave the house if, like, I had a wrinkle on a t-shirt or like I had a hair on a place. Like, everybody in my family is just like clean freaks, and we didn't come from much, but you take care of everything you have. So I've always carried this model of perfection with me from a very young age. So when it got into the bodybuilding world, it was just second nature. It was second nature for me to be just an absolute robot, because I grew up in the Northeast in a family, blue collar, that, if you weren't miserable, you weren't doing it right. And, everything had to be perfectly in its perfect little place, and you had to look perfect everywhere you went. So that was just my identity. So bodybuilding was so easy to me because it fulfilled those deep wounds that I had inside of me that I needed fulfilling. It was just such a beautiful mask for me to wear, to help me deal with my wounds and my trauma, and it made them worse for sure. But yeah, it just fit to everything that I needed. And I was always that guy. I knew at an early age, like, I didn't have the crazy structure to be one of the top guys. I didn't have wild, billowing muscle bellies. So I knew that looking good and staying in shape year round was my forte in a sport. So I always tried to make sure I was ready for photo shoots, ready for commercials and things like that. And that's kind of how I approach the sport to myself.
Okay, I got a two-parter for this. One, you completely downplayed your physique because you got some of the craziest quads, period. So the round, full muscle bellies, for sure, you got. And I don't think that is a lack of structure by any means. Everyone can sit there and pinpoint, well, I wish I had more of this, or I wish I had more of that. And, we're all our own worst critic, for sure. By staying so lean all the time, purely from a competitive bodybuilding standpoint, if you could go back in time, would you allow yourself to maybe get a little bit sloppier, to not be constant photo shoot ready, and to help push the drive? Or let me phrase that. Would you allow your body to not stay as lean for the pursuit of gaining more mass in key areas instead of just focusing on, am I ready for this commercial? Am I ready for this photo shoot?
No, I don't regret how I approached my career. There's actually, like, even at this point, like, I wish I even stayed smaller than I did. I've seen my body physiologically change through the years, and there's just changes in my body that I can never get back. And especially when you start getting bigger, and and everybody runs into sleep apnea issues and stuff like that. It's some, like, my biggest off seasons, and I was just really suffering with sleep apnea. I was like, I I I don't love this enough to have to live on a machine in order to sleep at night. So those are just things that, like, for me, that just I didn't align from a health perspective, because I always tried to be health forward as well. I mean, as consciously as you can be with bodybuilding and everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
But I always tried to think long term more than anything. And I knew that, because again, like I'm narrow clavicle, wide through the hips. So I knew that packing on more mass, the first place it's going to go really is like my waist, my midsection. And I needed to keep that small and tight in order to give me any flow. So that was always, like, one of the biggest focuses I had outside of just staying lean.
I've got a really interesting question that I want to dive into, but I'm also very intrigued about when you are bodybuilding against genetics. So my biggest thing with any of my people, and it doesn't matter whether it's, a first time competitor, or, it's, one of my guys that competes on the pro level. You can take any single one of my people at any time and run a full panel of blood work, and I make sure that all my people are healthy. It's one of my biggest, personal victories, to making sure that my guys stay healthy, and a less is more approach. I think a lot of people, the loudest person in the room is always the one that people are going to look at, but doesn't mean that they are correct. And with the current state of what's going on with this huge push for everyone wanting to be some kind of steroid guru, educator, or whatever, and they're just idiots. I feel like we've regressed back into the forum days where someone was like, I got Dorian's cycle, and it's like $30,000 worth of shit. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, if I showed you, like, I've got a guy on my team, and he competes at the Olympia. If I showed you what he took, it's less than what most wellness girls take. And I'm like, if you understand the micronutrition over the macro, what you can do with food is mind-blowing. And if you can leverage nutrition over just jamming yourself full of 3 cc's a week, what your body can do is phenomenal. And you can stay in the sport longer. I've got a gentleman, Brian Carlisle. He's one of my favorite athletes. I don't have favorites, but Brian is 100% one of my favorite people. I've never met anyone who works harder than him. And I've told this story for years. No one will ever outwork Brian. This guy is a super freak, and he doesn't take very much, and he's 52 years old. He will stand toe to toe with anyone. He's a super freak, but he puts in the work. So shout out to Brian. That conversation could have kept going, but I was like, we'll end it so it's not a weird drug rant. But speaking of drugs, you've been alcohol free for what now? 4 years now?
Yeah. And then even before then, it's when I was bodybuilding, it might have been like twice a year I'll get drunk, New Year's Eve, and then sometime during the summer.
Yeah. So you beat me by a couple years. And when I was huge and a walking pharmacy, as people like to point out. I never did any recreational drug. I never drank. It wasn't my forte. And then when I had my daughter and I backed off from bodybuilding to just focus on business and being dad, the emotional downward spiral of downsizing and not living out my dream was really hard. And then alcohol seems to be a very easy thing for people to grab and drown their sorrows in and get liquid courage and everything's okay. But it's not okay. So I think I'm pushing about 3 years now with no alcohol.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I wanted to bring that up because you had talked about having a spirit guide. And at one point, your spirit guide was not happy and wanted you to let go of this constant need for perfection. There's two parts of this. Give me a second. I'm trying to figure out how to word this the correct way to where it makes sense to everybody. I see a lot of people that turn to alcohol, and it could be other things too, but alcohol seems to be a relatively easy thing for people to access. And I hear people all the time. They're like, well, I want to get better. I want to live a different life. And I keep feeling like I can't get out of my own way. I'm stuck in a rut, so to speak. And I read a thing. So in 2024, MIT published a paper talking about the benefits of generating a new neurological fingerprint, is what they called it, by utilizing psilocybin mushrooms. And that to generate a visual understanding of what this means, imagine you're at the beach and you're close to the water and you dig your heel into the ground and you trench it and you watch the water only go into that trench. Well, that water has walls around it, so it can only go in one particular way. They're saying that by utilizing the psilocybin mushroom, that you can completely redo your fingerprints. So if you take that wall out and you're able to get the neurons to fire in a different way, you can completely change your own habits. And people are like, oh, that's bologna sandwich. I can tell you firsthand, the first time I ever took a psilocybin mushroom was the last time I ever had alcohol. So I know for a fact that it works, but I wanted to talk to you about assisted meditation. Are mushrooms still part of your life? Is this something that you deal with? And how do you deal with, your spirit guide? Because not everyone really knows what that means.
Yeah. So I guess we can backtrack a little bit. Uh, my first introduction into the plant medicine was post-divorce. I'd retired and I knew that I needed to change the wiring and overcome the childhood issues I'd been dealing with that kind of kept me from being free. And, mushrooms is one of the first things I get into, plus a bunch of other plant medicines. And it truly, it rewires your brain. It is the fastest way for neuroplasticity. So when you do things like even just microdosing mushrooms or doing like a macro dose, and then you do it intentionally and you kind of set up things like meditation and breath work and things like that surrounding it, filling yourselves with positive thoughts, you can totally shift how your mind works and really pull you out of some deep dark places. I think it was such an amazing tool that I've utilized in my life. Right now I've been sober on it for a pretty reasonable amount of time, and that's more of like it helped me get so far. And now I'm just trying to find and now I'm a newfound Christian and everything, so now I'm trying to really find peace in the Lord. But I do owe so much, and these are some of the battles even as a Christian. Some people think, oh, this stuff's the devil, but I truly think that these are things that God created. He put these things on earth, and when you approach it in the right way and you approach it to get closer to him, then they're of godly things. But yeah, like through this whole process, it kind of just opened my heart up to realizing that I still hold an identity on things like you said, my body, on my performance, and I felt like I had no value if I didn't have these things. whereas our value is just truly who we are and existing and just being a loving, empathetic person. So, it was really great for me to kind of help overcome some of that stuff. And I'm still battling with a lot of these issues. And I feel like just tearing my pec a couple weeks ago was another sign from God being like, hey, your identity is not in your body anymore. Your identity is in me. You got to let that go. Um, because I can backtrack a little bit and say, like, about a month before this injury, I was kind of disgusted at how my body looked. I'd really kind of just stopped training much, eating very freely. And I saw some photos and videos and I was like, you know what? I got to step it up a little bit because I couldn't be athletic because I'm dealing with some pelvic floor and hip issues. So I was like, if I can't be athletic, I at least got to look good. And then I start focusing on tightening up my nutrition and training a little more. And I hopped on some peptides. And sure enough, I put on a good amount of mass in a very short period of time. But then all of a sudden, God was like, nope. And I tore my pec. And it was like, okay. So, kind of that gentle reminder that, to do it for the right reasons, to train right, eat right, to honor your temple and to be healthy, but not to make your body the idol.
I've always felt that whether it's God watching me, whether it's the universe sending me messages, whichever way that you like to believe, they put roadblocks in there for a reason. And it's never a wall to say that you're done, but sometimes you got to slow down. For the last couple years, I know this to be very, very true. Every bodybuilding season for at least the last 5 or 6 years, I have traveled almost every weekend for whatever show that my people are at. I take great pride in being at every show for my people, and I try to schedule things out a full year in advance. This year was kind of a weird one. I had pulled a bunch of people, probably 80% of the people on the team, from competing. I said, you need time. Let's finish building the physique. Let's either make the pro debut next year or let's go for the pro card the following year, whatever it may be. But I pulled everyone for a particular reason. And I think I've only done 2 shows this entire year, and we're at the end of August. So kind of a weird feeling not living out of a suitcase. But my wife is pregnant and she's due in about 2 weeks. And I was really battling at the beginning of the year because we found out Christmas Day that she was pregnant. And like, oh, this is great. And then I'm looking at my travel schedule going, oh no, this is bad. I'm supposed to be in Japan for the Masters Olympia and the Tokyo Pro that first part of August. And she goes, I'm going to tell you right now, if you are not here when I go into labor, I will kill you. I will bring you back to life and then I will kill you again. I was like, that is fair. So I didn't end up going to Japan. So I didn't do any traveling this year, except I went to the Toronto Pro. But for the first couple months, it was really weird. I just felt like, man, like I feel like I'm missing part of me. And I was having one of my meditation sessions, and I was talking in my head, talking to myself, asking questions, looking for answers. And I had heard this voice. It was like, you got to slow down. You are missing the things in front of you. You're working so much to support the people that you love, but you're physically there, but you're not emotionally present. And I remember opening my eyes, coming up, and I was like, holy shit, man. It's like I spent all this time building this amazing career for myself and for my family. I'm not even here to enjoy it. Like I'm in my home, or I'm in my office, which is on my property, but I'm staring at my phone. I couldn't even tell you what my kid wore to school. And I was like, okay, we've gone too far. We got to slow it down. So it's something that I know that I need to work on, with just being more present in the motion, and that money's great, but money doesn't rule everything. And what's the point of having money if you're not even able to enjoy it with the people that you're doing it for? So,
Yeah. And
slow
it's
down.
hard. And it's great that you've had that realization, and you had it probably early enough. A lot of people never do. And a lot of people bury themselves in their work, and they think they're providers, and, and they bury themselves in their work to hide being still and being present. But, amazing on you to have that realization early on, and then not all of a sudden when your kids are graduating from high school and you realize, holy shit, I just missed everything,
Yeah.
you know? And I tell people like that was one of the biggest things of my regrets in my early life was I was just so focused on achieving and accomplishing because I didn't think I was worthy of love if I didn't achieve and accomplish, so that was full-fledged. Like I didn't live life. I didn't experience so much. So the last couple of years I've really just been focusing on trying to experience. And even as I move forward and trying to launch what I'm doing next, and making an impact, I know there's that dog in me that can still grind and grind and grind and grind, but I don't want to ever have to do that. I want to have grace over grind. I want things to be in alignment. Obviously there's going to be days that are going to be tough and they're going to be long, but like the general theme of things, like I just want to be present. I want to be appreciative. I want to still experience this life and just have faith that God will provide.
I see a lot of people that get addicted to success, which I'm guilty of. I don't know how much you know about what it is that I do, but aside from the coaching stuff, we own a supplement company and then we own a payment processing company. So you've got 3 completely different careers, all trying to be managed by one guy with an above average beard. You can only do so much.
Pretty epic.
Yeah. Some days. So I want to go back to the spirit guide thing. One, how do you find a spirit guide? Because obviously that's kind of a unique thing too. And is this something that do you have reservations about reaching out to a spirit guide? Does this seem like witchcraft to you, or are you like, I'm fully on board. I understand what you do. Help guide me to make me more at peace.
So I found her actually because we got connected on a date. She was friends of a client of mine, and she saw me in a video and she's like, "Oh, he's cute." And she had just gone through a divorce not long before and whatever. And when we connected, we just became really good friends. But before we even went on a first date, we did a call, and the things that she was able to talk about my life that no way anybody in the world could ever know. So that was kind of like, all right, I believe. Um, and so I just leaned on her, and I would call like every 4 to 6 months or whenever I was dealing with a big situation, and just say what, just see what my spirits were telling me, which direction to lead. And she pinpointed so many things, like go on and on. Like she talked about my investors walking away when we were full-fledged, like they're flying me on a private jet across the country, paying me a significant consulting fee. And she's like, this isn't going to happen. I'm like, what are you talking about? Sure enough, like 10 months later, it falls out. And so I can go on and on and on situations like that. So I've always kind of leaned on her, not as like hard and true, this is what I have to do, but like, okay, like I'm either heading in the right direction or I'm heading in the wrong direction. I need to navigate, pivot here. And she helped lead me to find God. And she's a believer too. But like when I became committed to Christ this fall, this spring, there's this internal battle, because in the Bible it says, don't believe prophets and then don't believe mystics and things like that. So it's kind of this internal battle that I'm dealing with. But everything she's done and everything I've done through the medicine work and everything else has led me to be a believer in Christ, has led me to be God. So how can I deny those things that led me to where I am, and turn my back on them? So yeah, I'm in this kind of strange situation, but I've talked to her just in the past like week or so over everything I'm dealing with, and still kind of lean on her.
That's great that you can have someone who help, especially with guidelines, not so much that you've become dependent upon, but, just let me double check. Am I going in the right direction? Perfect. I'm going to keep doing that.
Right.
And I think for me anyway, when I got into coaching 17 years ago, holy shit, it was one, there wasn't a huge amount of coaches. Not everyone was like, I did a show, I'm a coach, hire me. And it wasn't glorified. There wasn't 20 people saying like, I have the greatest coach ever. It was just, you had the guy who was helping you. There's a couple big name ones, and like where I came from in the Bay Area of California, that part of California has bred so many great coaches and so many prominent figures in the fitness community. You know,
Yeah.
I came from Burlingame, so right down the road from where Hani's from. You know, Victor Conte's right down the road from me. My daughter took horse lessons from Victor Conte's daughter. So, you know, you've got Aerial Cuts, you know, all these people. You got, you know, Team Believe, Suggs, you know, myself came from there. You know, all these people that have turned into these incredible, very, very successful fitness endeavors all came from one area. Very unique. But I noticed that when I got into it, that it started getting really cliquey and I didn't like it. And so I'm sure people probably still have the screenshot somewhere. Every show I went to for the first couple of years, I would send every coach that I knew that was going to be there a message, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram or whatever we had at the time. I think maybe MySpace. Say, I'm going to be at the show and I want to have a coach's dinner. I want all the coaches to come together and just break bread. There's no need for any kind of animosity. We're all there to bring our people in the best we can. And fast forward, I think it's amazing that now I don't know how much of a hand I actually had in this, but so many coaches are wanting to collaborate with each other. Hey, I've got this person and I'm hitting a wall. What do you see that I'm not seeing? Like I just talked to a buddy of mine, Ashley, who's a bikini coach, deals with bikini girls at the Olympia level. And I said, you know, I primarily deal with super freaks. That's my bread and butter, and diabetics. But I was like, I've got this lady. Am I going in the right direction with her posing recommendations? And using him as a guideline is such an amazing thing because 10 years ago, that wasn't an option. I couldn't call Kim Odo and be like, hey, Kim, I've got this person. Like, let me run an idea by you. You'd be like, the fuck out of here. Right. So I'm really, really pleased that that's where things have gone and that people are willing to lose that aggression towards one another and work with each. It's a nice thing that people are trending in that direction. But going back to the fitness thing, because I didn't want to glaze over this with the newbie. It's such a unique bit of equipment, but more importantly, you were the poster person for that company. Everybody just associated newbie with Brad Rowe. And I wanted to ask you, one, how did you get involved with that? Because that's a really unique bit of equipment. You know, there's a couple of imposters over the years, but that particular, you know, utilizing direct current over alternating current can be so beneficial for when you're really trying to target key things, but it's a very hefty investment. And for people that don't do a lot of in-person work, it doesn't really pan out. I looked into it, but I work out by myself, so it doesn't really do me any good. Right. But was this something that they approached you and like, hey, we have this cool bit of equipment, we'd love for you to play with it? How did this come about? Because I truly don't know any of the answers I'm asking the questions to, so I'm learning on the fly.
It came through multiple injuries, actually. So we originally got a hold of the device. My ex-wife was doing a hammer strength shoulder press facing in. Charles Glass had showed her how to do this. And the seat collapsed when she was fully extended up with like a 45 and a 25 on each side. And she went to a split and she tore both of her rec fem insertions in her hips. So she was supposed to be in a walker for like 12 weeks and it was going to be like 20 some odd weeks before she was even be able to train. They had a guy who was doing marketing for them that had seen us at Gold's and thought we were just great people. So he reached out to the owner and was like, hey, he's like, there's this couple, they're at Gold's. The wife's dealing with an injury. Do you think we could send her a device to help her get better? So they reached out, they sent us a machine and just let us use it for free and rehabbed her. And at like 12 weeks, she was already back at training legs at like 60% strength. So it drastically sped up the process. We sent the device back and I thought that was the end of it. Then about 3 months later, I was at Destination Dallas doing a photo shoot for Gasp because I was with Gasp at the time and I just competed at the Tampa Pro. And I was helping Per Bernal move a tire behind me to like put it in the scene behind. And as we went to go pick up the tire, the back end just hit the wall and that sudden stop snapped my bicep off. And they happened to be at the gym doing a demo there because it was, like Destination Dallas is, I think, like 10-year anniversary or something. So it's like a big event. And so the VP was there and he's like, hey, he's like, We got you. We'll send you another machine after surgery. Like, you'll be back and at it in no time. So I had surgery, and I actually stepped on stage 14 weeks post-op at Romania and took fifth because I was using the newbie to rehab my arm and train other body parts while I was getting ready through that. And I was just so amazed that I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to buy one of these. So I decided to purchase one, went out and got certified, and kind of the rest is history. And I'm just so grateful for that I was in the right circle of people. So, obviously Sean Roden was my training partner at the time. Me and Dexter were close, all these guys. So when I walk in a Gold's Gym with this machine, everybody thinks I'm a snake oil salesman. Like, oh, this thing's stupid. And I'm like, all right. And just fortunately, everybody that knew me knew I was a stand-up guy, and I don't sell bullshit. So Dexter was really kind of one of the first ones that gave me a shot with it. And, that one prep going into the Olympia, I think it was 2017 or no, yeah, 2017 Olympia. I changed Dexter's legs, like set him back like 8 years, in time, like got fullness, got separation in him, everything. So he was kind of like my Mona Lisa in the bodybuilding world from that standpoint. And then from there, everybody just started jumping on. And that's kind of how it led to that.
I've always, some people like, I'm a fan of the sport. Like, I truly love bodybuilding. I don't like the fakeness that the social media has brought forward from it, but the heart of bodybuilding is something that I live and breathe every single day. I love it. And I remember when people were like, oh, Dexter, he's gone. He's too old. His legs are starting to diminish. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, what the hell? What happened? They're like, his guru must have put him on the craziest concoction. Everyone always thinks that, the next guru's got like the ultimate drug protocol.
Yeah.
But that's a fascinating thing. So this gigantic thing, which commonly misnoted as a super tens unit. Everyone's got their own wording for how they're going to describe this thing.
Yeah.
What makes the newbie so different in comparison to just like, I went to Big Five and got a tens unit?
So like you said, AC current as opposed to DC current. So all AC current does is affects the motor unit of the muscle itself. So like when you're in the chiropractor's office, they put that thing on, your muscle is just contracting like this. It's an involuntary forcible contraction. So it's not including your nervous system function whatsoever. Whereas new fit DC current, we're actually affecting the sensory system within the muscles. So we have these mechanoreceptors for stretch, pressure, everything else. And so what this is doing is it's actually sending a signal that mimics our body's nervous system signal. So all these little receptors are receiving this exaggerated signal, and they're unsure why they're receiving it. So when you go to contract and you go to lift something up, the signal that your brain would or your muscles in your brain would kind of communicate with is just extremely enhanced. So now you're waking up all these dormant muscle fibers because your body thinks it's about to lift a much greater load than it really is. So you're getting about 90 to 95% muscle fiber recruitment on every rep you do. Whereas the most elite athletes in the world are lucky if they can get 60 to 65% on their absolute very best rep. So, like one of the big differences is like, if I were to put the newbie on my arm and crank it up, yes, my arm would contract because these little sensors are like, whoa, what are we getting this signal from? But I can overcome it and actually open my arm up and stretch my arm and release the muscle. Whereas like a tens unit, when it's in that contractile state and you go to open it, you can't, and you will tear muscle, you will tear tendon. So those are kind of like the big differences. And the beauty about the new fit is like we can actually find areas that aren't firing properly and pad those up, through damage and time. We have the receptors that become hyperactive. So we can actually pinpoint and put pads on those areas. And through a series of sets and treatments, we actually get that whole muscle firing more efficiently. So you don't need the new fit after, you're becoming more efficient. Whereas again, with a tens unit, the only thing it's good for is if you were kind of immobile and you need to stop complete atrophy. and you just plug it up and just let it kind of squeeze. It's not going to grow anything. It's not going to do anything else. It'll just probably stop you from getting complete atrophy. Like say if you're in a cast or something like that. That's the only benefit of an AC stim.
Yeah, I think that it's absolutely fascinating, and you worded that's way better than I could have ever. But I tell people I don't know, I'm on everyone's podcasts, it seems like, and I feel like I've told this story at least 6 times this last week. But I have the world's greatest chiropractor, and I will die on this hill defending that because I can back it up. So I've got this gentleman. His name is Dr. Jean-Paul Martinet. He's in the hills of Oakland, which the actual town is called Piedmont. And he does some of the craziest things you've ever seen. And unless you were there in person to witness it, if I told you what he did, you'd be like, that's some voodoo shit. So aside from being a chiropractor, he doesn't do a whole lot of the pop and crack stuff. He specializes in neurological related things as well as tap therapy. He's an Atlas specialist. He does some of the most amazing things you've ever seen. And I remember, and I've, for years, I mean, my kid's 11, so I've been going there for about 11 years. I learn something every time I go there. And I told him, I'm like, I fear the day that you retire because you don't have a protege. And who's going to take over doing some of this amazing stuff?
Yeah.
But he taught me something, and it's something that I've utilized in my own practice for the better part of a decade now, that when you take NSAIDs, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, it dramatically negatively impacts your body's ability to properly send out that frequency from the brain to said muscle. And people are like, no, that's not true. I guarantee you it's true. If you take Advil and then go and try and work out, your pump will not be the same as you think it is. So I do the best I can for myself to not take these things. That, granted, it's very seldom that I ever get a headache, but unless I'm really dying, I don't want to take them to try and close my eyes, reset. When people are doing things like with the NuFit, is there any list of supplements that you recommend to help increase some of this? Like, are you asking them to take more choline, more magnesium to help improve the muscle mind connection to get the brain to work more efficiently? Is there a list of things that you recommend for someone to have a better muscle contraction just from working from the inside out?
Yeah, I mean, so, good thing you touch base on that. Obviously, we hear about electrolytes and everything and how they're so important. You got potassium, magnesium, sodium. You really need to increase those. Things like choline and taurine, I would really suggest kind of increasing and really kind of broadening your magnesium intake, not just like a magnesium malate or something like that, but just getting kind of a full spectrum magnesium in the body is really beneficial. And hydration is another key factor to it. And just like nutrition, one of my biggest regrets, and I wish I had my hands in this differently. When I prepped Dexter for the Olympia in 2020, me and Dexter trained solely together on the newbie. He was making really great progress. And then when it came to dieting down, there was a lot of times that, and I don't want to throw George under the bus, but I felt like George was really underfeeding him. And, George was just going off the old playbook because him and Dexter have worked together for over a decade. So George was just like, oh, this is just how Dexter operates. And he didn't realize the energy expenditure increase with using the newbie and just didn't feed him up enough. And then all of a sudden Dexter comes into the Olympia just looking really flat and really run down because, we were just putting his body through so much work and it just wasn't being supported with nutrition and rest because, George just wasn't sure how to navigate this. And so that was one of my biggest things where it can really help and it can really hurt if you don't approach it properly with nutrition, rest, and supplementation and all this other stuff.
The balance is so key. People say like, oh, are you hydrated? Well, what does hydrated mean? Because if you went to the hospital and you had heat stroke and they're like, oh, you're dehydrated, they're not just going to give you an IV of water. It has all sorts of goodies in there. And I see people all the time. They're like, "Oh man, I go into the hospital and I got an IV of magnesium," and I'm like, "You probably felt amazing after, didn't you?" They're like, "Yeah,"
Right.
and then I had the runs. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that
Right.
happens too.
Right.
Fine. I have, and I battle this with myself for sure. The thought process of getting back into bodybuilding full bore, and I look back at pictures when I was just enormous. Like, that's so cool, but I'm like, at what cost? Finding balance with both food as well as just day-to-day life it's its own struggle for sure. And I see a lot of the big push with HRT clinics, and everyone needs more testosterone. Everyone needs more testosterone. But when we look at it from just a pure mathematic point, like, and I always tell people, like, if you're a gambler or you're an investor, you'll understand this very well. You work in percentages. With testosterone, on average, I have to say on average, a healthy adult male peaks at about 6 to 7 milligrams testosterone production per day, which averages about 49. We'll round it up to 50 milligrams of testosterone production per week naturally. And now you're getting a prescription for 200 milligrams a week. Now, in the fitness world, probably on the lower side, but from a medical standpoint, it's a 400% increase. Do you have 400% increase in muscle tissue? Probably not. The beauty of having an elevated amount of testosterone, aside from the sense of well-being that you get from it and inflammation control, is protein synthesis. You're able to properly utilize that food more efficiently. Now, you and I have been in the gym way too long, and we have a lot of muscle density, so it's easy for us to maintain some of the good muscle shape, the size. Let's say someone came in and they were 40. They saw a commercial. Jay Cutler's got hormone replacement. I want to be like Jay. But everyone says, I got to have 2 grams of protein per my body weight. What would you tell someone who came to you and is like, I'm eating all this food, but it's backfiring. I feel like I'm getting fatter. What advice would you give them to help find some kind of balance between being healthy, but also being able to look and feel good?
I mean, yeah, it's a slippery slope because I have a lot of guys that kind of like, oh, I want to look like this, I want to do this, and it's like, but then they don't want to sacrifice their health and all this other stuff. And it's really interesting. I have a lot of friends that are really big into kind of the research side of things, and studies, and we're seeing a lot of data that like you don't need the 2 grams per pound for a protein, in order to increase muscle protein synthesis, that we don't really need to operate at such a high caloric surplus in order to gain tissue. And I think it's uh, this misunderstanding and kind of this bro science of like, oh, you have to get huge, you have to get fat in order to put on muscle. I think there's such a tiny minuscule benefit of eating at a high caloric surplus compared to the negative downside of like like you said, putting on fat, messing with insulin sensitivity and things like that. So I think like one of the biggest things is find a baseline and just eat slightly above baseline, and just kind of monitor things closely. And then going back to what you said with like the hormone stuff, one of the big issues I have is like, the coaching that I'm in now, I don't touch any athletes anymore. I'm out of that. My stuff is more like, I call myself a vitality coach. So we're going to work on functional health. We're going to work on nutrition, training. We're going to do daily mindset habits. I'm going to help you increase sleep hygiene, help you increase energy throughout the day. We're going to help you with stress management, all that type of stuff. So that's kind of like where my wheelhouse is now. And I'll send people to a hormone clinic, and it's someone who's never touched gear before. They're in their late 40s and maybe they're at like 500 or so their test levels, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to put them on 200 milligrams of test. And I'm like, their levels are going to be like 1300. Like they've never, like, let's start at like 140. and see, or even 100, and see where their levels are at after 3 to 4 weeks. Like, why are we going big? And then all of a sudden, like, I've sent a couple guys to places and like, oh yeah, so I've been on tests for a month and we just got retested and they want me to add in, what do you think of me adding in like Deca and Anavar? And I'm like, no, like this is health and wellness. Like, this is not bodybuilding. No hormone clinic should be prescribing nandrolone or Anavar or anything like that unless they're dealing with a severe muscle wasting disease or some other major medical issues, not just for looking good. This is not what this is about. So that's my gripe with the whole hormone clinic type stuff out there. They're just trying to push more drugs on people. Oh, you're a little overweight. Here, take some semaglutide, do this, do that. And it's like, how about we just create structure? Let's get people hormonally in an optimal level, somewhere between like 800 and 1,000 is optimal. Any higher than 1,000, don't need to do that, So I don't know. That's my gripe with the whole hormone replacement stuff.
Oh, I see it all the time. It's crazy. I think one of the worst ones I see is the people that they go to just a normal GP asking for hormone related stuff, and someone who doesn't specialize in that doesn't really know what to look for. And the overprescribed Arimidex is so mind blowing. I will share his name, and he can tell everyone all the detriments that happen to it. So we've got a gentleman that's on the team. His name is Rob Tremonte. He is a streamer, a video game streamer. That's his career, and he's incredible at it. He's been in a Super Bowl commercial and everything. So his streamer thing is Big Energy Rob, and he did an episode with me a couple months back, and he sends me all of his blood work, and he goes, hey, I'm seeing this doctor. This is what she's prescribing. And I said, all right, the testosterone looks fine. And he goes, they want me to take, this list of other concoctions. I said, there's no need for what you're going through. That's just completely unnecessary. And it's a huge amount of money. That's like a $1,200 bill. Just get your testosterone and get the anti-estrogen, and we'll retest your blood work. We'll see how your body's responding, and we'll go from there. He goes, she says I need to take 1 milligram of Arimidex 2 times a week. I'm like, the fuck you do? And he goes, well, it's the doctor, so I'm going to listen to her. And I'm like, you write this down. You're going to come back with 0 estrogen, your dick's not going to work, and your joints are going to be in a horrendous amount of pain.
And your HDL is going to be crashed.
So 6 weeks later, he's like, hey man, I'm going to send you my blood work. You're like some kind of like weird voodoo doctor. How did you know that's exactly what was going to happen? I'm like, because I understand science, man. Like, you crashed your estrogen. Now you got, wet noodle thing going on, and your body's not responding, and you can't recover from your workout either. I'm like, don't take any anti-estrogen stuff for at least 2 months at an absolute minimum. You're at 140 milligrams of testosterone per week. Your body doesn't have enough extra testosterone to aromatize into anything worthwhile, needing something that's going to reduce your estrogen by 80%.
Right.
So the point of that story was find someone who can understand blood work and help you the right way. Now, there's all sorts of different clinics out there. If you got one that you like, go ahead, plug them. I got my own things.
Yeah. No, it's but actually, I wanted to parlay on that. So when I first got into bodybuilding, anti-estrogens were the thing. Like, I love Chris Aceto, but Chris push anti-E's so hard on me. Like, they were perhaps like the most test I've ever taken was 800 milligrams a week. That's the most I've ever taken. I was typically like around like my cycles would be like 750 tests, 300 EQ if it was like off season, maybe like 300 Deca added into it, or like prep would be like 750 tests or like 700 tests, say like 300 primo, and then maybe like the last 6 weeks we'd add in like 250 to 300 milligrams of Tren and Anavar, like 50 milligrams of Anavar. But Chris would load me up on like a milligram of Arimidex every day, letrozole every day, because I was having a prolactin issue that he just thought was an estrogen issue, and I just listened to him because he was one of the best names in the world. And so like my HDLs tanked. I would say a lot of my major injuries were because of that long period of time that I was so high on anti-estrogens, torn tendons left and right, and then that's what it does. So I'm glad that there's a lot more educated people out there nowadays and understand that estrogen's a good thing. We need it. It does so much for our body. And especially when your test levels are 2,500, it's okay to have your estrogen levels in the 60s and 70s. We kind of need that balance. So, yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that because that's, I think it's something that really hurt me. That was probably the most detrimental thing to my health through my whole bodybuilding career was those first few years where I was just loaded up on NEs.
It it's an unfortunate thing, and hopefully more people are learning from that, and that what you're looking for on blood work is not just in a standardized thing. Like sometimes you got to ask for specialty things. That's why I don't have like an affiliate, but I deal with the Walk-In Labs company. There's other ones out there too, but I personally have used them for years. That way I can get exactly what it is that I'm looking for. I don't know when you were still prepping athletes, what your thought was on this. When I've got my bigger guys that are running, I don't think I've ever had anyone purposely go over a gram of tests. It just wasn't necessary. But even like Brian, like my bigger guys, will top out at 750 per week for test. But I like them to use exemestane, aromacin. That way, it's not really fucking with their natural hormone production for the estrogen, and I'm not constantly negatively affecting their cholesterol. People are forgetting that when you take testosterone, that dramatically changes the way that your cholesterol looks on blood work. And so if you're sitting there constantly stripping out all this cholesterol, and they're like, well, don't worry, I ate a bunch of eggs. The dietary cholesterol that you are eating does not build the cholesterol up. You're looking at calcium buildup, plaque buildup, like two totally different things.
We can go on and talk about like how what doctors and everyone else thinks what blood work's supposed to look like, how food affects blood work and everything else is just totally wrong. Like we're like general information and general practitioner information is so off base as to how nutrition and drugs and everything else play a role into what our actual blood work looks like. So I'm glad that you're intelligent enough to understand that and at least teaching the right things to your people.
You would think that it wouldn't be a rarity, but I guess as we get older, we find out that common sense is less common than we thought it was.
Yeah. It's
No,
a
but
scary place out there.
it's the Wild West for sure. Well, and yeah, I want to get out of this conversation, but people are forgetting that you got to look how everything works in synergy. Because if you're taking other things, like if you take a look at equipoise, or you take a look at Mastron, Primo, I don't know why DHB all of a sudden is popular again. I always remember it as Test One.
Right.
Whatever. Someone on the interweb has thought it was the next best thing since sliced bread, and now everyone wants it.
Yeah.
But they're forgetting that with some of these, not all of them, I'm not going to go into the gigantic explanation, do your own fucking research, but some of these things are already an anti-estrogen.
Yeah.
And so then what do you need to double it up for?
Right.
I see some of the craziest protocols. People come to me from other coaches and they're like, I took 800 milligrams of Mastron. I took 50 milligrams of DHB per day. I was taking 100 milligrams of Proviron a day, plus all the other shit. I was like, why? Why? Do you not know how to do fucking cardio and be in a calorie deficit? What happened here?
Right. Yeah.
Well, then I had to take insulin and I took metformin before I went to bed. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It's hard. And especially when you see younger athletes getting into that. And then that was like another big moral dilemma I had. I'd get these like 17, 18-year-old kids that would come to me and they're like already on a shitload of stuff and all wrong. And like, I just morally could not help them. But then also like, I'll let them go to someplace else and do the same shit and ruin themselves. So it's like, so morally it became so difficult in this industry to lead with compassion and to lead from a good place, because no matter what, you're sending someone down the wrong path, but do you really want to see them get fucked up, or do you want to do the best thing that you can and try to mitigate any major issues?
I, I I call it which is the lesser of the two evils.
Right.
Yeah. Um, Going back to the dryness from the anti-estrogen, um, is that what caused the quad issue?
I'm sure it was, a
Part of
major,
that.
yeah, major part of it, So like, I think like the major injuries I've had in my career, tore my right quad, like a pretty significant muscle in the belly of the quad.
Okay.
Um, and then I've done my quad tendon, I've done my bicep tendon. Now I've done my pec tendon and my muscle tendon junction. And without a doubt, I mean, it's that's the biggest culprit, I would say, of just the lingering effects of a good 4 or 5 year span of just running way too much anti-estrogens.
I remember when you did your quad, because around the same time I got my first Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I was like, we have bonded. He doesn't know it, but we've bonded.
I love it. I love it.
So hydration. Okay, so the tendon thing. This is a really tricky one, and then we'll get out of the weird sciencey stuff.
Yeah.
People just think they're like, well, if I just drink a bunch of water and I add salt to it, it's like I'm going to be hydrated. But hydrating on a cellular level is very, very different. And so when you look, and I say this for years, and I've get emails from people. They're like, you know what? I used to just buy water at the gas station, but ever since we started working with each other, I hate you because now I can't go into a place and buy anything other than like a $7 bottle of water. Like, yeah, but you feel so much better.
Right.
You've got the issues where you're like, oh, well, I need to hydrate the tendons. Obviously, you need healthy fats to help with inflammation control, not inflammation suppression. Very different. But then you've got the detriments of you're paying for convenience when you go to a gas station and you get, let's say you get smart water, core water. Reverse osmosis water is distilled water. They've added these minerals for flavor. They're not minerals in there to benefit you other than your taste buds. So you're spending a premium to dehydrate your body on purpose.
Yeah.
With what you know now, one as an athlete as well as a coach, what do you recommend to people for keeping their body hydrated as well as limber? Keeping the tendons pliable is not a common conversation to have, but I think it's a very important one to have.
Yeah. For me, like, I'm a hydration Nazi at this point in my life. So it's like first thing I do, I wake up and I do have a reverse osmosis system, but I also have a lot of additives that I put into it. So like first thing in the morning, I'm doing a mix with some magnesium, some fulvic acid, another trace minerals thing, and then a pure electrolyte combination of like potassium, magnesium, and sodium. So that's the first thing that goes in my body. I have that, and then I'm doing like 4 rounds of a hydrogen water bottle. And the nice thing about my RO system is I have this little carafe, and it drips down through like a remineralization thing, so it's not completely stripped out. Um, and then throughout the day, I'm a sodium fanatic. Like electrolyte fanatic. So I'm probably I like Redmond's Recharge. I think they're one of the better products out there. Um, and so I'm probably going through 4 to 5, maybe even 6 sticks a day, depending on my level of activity. So yeah, I'm neurotic when it comes to just getting proper electrolytes in your body. Because like you said, you can drink all the water you want. It doesn't mean it's going to go into your muscles properly, and it's actually probably going to dehydrate you even more because we have this thing called osmolarity, and water is going to flow where nutrients and electron pumps can go. So when you're not taking in that stuff, your body just excretes the water even faster. So yeah, I'm pretty neurotic about the hydration part.
For years, I thought I was the only person who used that word. When I heard someone else say osmolarity, I got so giddy inside.
Science nerds, science nerds.
Yeah, super nerd. Um, okay, I everyone's gonna ask, and I can already feel my phone blowing up. You didn't fucking ask him. I gotta ask, how did you get introduced to Mike Tyson?
So one of my clients, a good friend of mine, he had gone into business with Mike and did something. Um, I think he was buying into Tyson Ranch. So one day he was at Mike's office and they were just hanging out. It was like Mike and Dre and a bunch of other people. And Mike was complaining that his back was hurting him. And I was training my buddy on the newbie. And he hits me up and he's like, yo, he's like, can you get to this address in like the next 30 minutes? I'm like, I'm in the middle of training clients. And I'm like, not real with the boy. What's up, man? He's like, you got to come work on Mike Tyson. And I'm like, okay. So I cancel all my clients for the afternoon. I'm like, load up my machine. I fly over there. I walk in the office and there's Dre sitting on a couch and Mike and a bunch of other people. And they're just passing around this huge blunt. And Mike is just messed up on mushrooms, messed up weed, like out of his mind. So he sees me, he's like, yo, he's like, who's this big jack dude? He's like, what the fuck? He's like, what the fuck you doing? He's like, what do you got there? So I'm like, I tell him about the machine. He's like, hook me up. So I hook him up. He's so messed up on mushrooms and everything. Like, he doesn't even know what's going on. The next day he wakes up and he's like, tells his wife, he's like, my back feels pretty good today. She's like, yeah, you don't remember that guy? He's like, what guy? She's like, the guy with the machine. He's like, what guy with what machine? He's like, whoever it was, get him to come back. So I get a text like later that day, like, hey, Mike wants you to come back again. And it just kind of like steamrolled from there. So I got started just helping him with his lower back. He was dealing with issues. And then when he decided to like get back into boxing, I told him like, hey, Mike, let me warm you up before you get in the ring one day. And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, let me put this on like different parts of your body. I'm like, I can get everything activated better. So when you get in the ring, like you're firing efficiently, you're moving better, you're moving freer. I'm like, and you're not wasting all this time doing jump rope and all this other shit. So I put him through like a 15-minute protocol. He got in the ring and literally within the first 2 minutes, him and his boxing coach just stopped and turned to me and they were like, what did you just do to him? Like you literally just supercharged him. I'm like, yeah, you got everything firing right. So they're like, you need to come do this every day. So it started with there where every day I'd warm him up before he got on the machine. Before he got in the ring. And then his trainer had just moved to Scottsdale and like took off. And he's like, oh, my trainer left. He's like, would you want to train me? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I could train you on this. He said, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, you work out on this. That makes it even better. Cause he kept getting hurt, like all these little strains and stuff. Cause Mike's like a very like neurotic, like just like all out person. So, yeah. So the next thing I know, I'm with Mike twice a day for God, it was like a 8-month span between warming him up before he boxed, he'd take a nap, and then he'd come to my house a couple hours later and I'd train him at my house. So yeah, that's how I got connected with Mike.
Pretty cool.
It was an amazing experience, man. Like Mike is a solid dude. Like honestly, one of the most enjoyable people I've been around in a weird way. Like, hey, you just didn't know what Mike you were gonna get. Like that man has his torments and troubles. So like in the same day, I'd see 3 different Mikes. I'd see Mike, who's your best friend. I'd see Mike, who was suicidal. I'd see Mike, who wanted to kill everybody, and I'd see like just an absolute quiet Mike, and you just never knew what you were going to get. And again, it's nothing to do with him. It's just the demons he's faced and the situations he was put in, but just a really intelligent man and a really caring and loving guy. I'm just so grateful for the time that I get to spend with him.
Yeah, no, every story I've ever heard about people who have actually dealt with him said he's just the nicest guy and
Yeah.
very, very enjoyable to be around. So we talked about, being good at bodybuilding before social media happened. And then with business, very similar thing. You have to prove that you can do what you do. I brought on a sales guy for my team and he told me, he goes, I can sell anything. He goes, you have to focus on fulfillment. And so with being a trainer, with being a coach, your fulfillment is pretty self-explanatory. And for years, you have done a great job at that. So over the years, you've built this reputation that you're a trustworthy individual, that you're good at what you do, you deliver these results, and it's consistent. for someone who's trying to get into, I guess, any kind of business, but really, let's say someone has their aspirations, like they want to move to LA, they want to go to Venice Golds, and they want to be a trainer, they want to be a bodybuilder. What is something that you would give them a bit of advice for? How could you help steer them in the right direction and not get lost in the shadiness of what is happening right now in our world?
My first response would be run. Don't do that. Don't go there. No, the biggest thing is just leading with a pure heart and being authentic in everything you do and not trying to conform and just being consistent and kind of resting on your work and your output rather than outside adulation or getting caught up in different circles. Just keep your head down, be authentically you, be real, and if you're good at what you do, be a people person, understand how to deal with people, then things are going to work out. And I think that like the people thing is probably one of the most overlooked aspects of success, especially when you're dealing with a lot of like one-on-one things. And I used to tell people all the time, like, well, how did you get so many big name athletes? How many did you get to this, this, and this? And the humble me would say it has nothing to do with my skill set. It was just my ability to have a conversation with people and to get people and to understand how to push people certain ways and which ways you can't push people. So especially when you're dealing in a service industry, which we essentially are, just having good people skills is probably one of the most important things that you can carry.
I completely agree. But I was going to ask you, with so many people, especially the younger generation, they grew, it's the TikTok generation, they have such short attention span and they're always face down in their phone. And it's almost like pulling teeth to get them to maintain a conversation. Is there any interpersonal communication skills that you have learned along the way that you would recommend someone doing? Like, I was very fortunate to where my parents were like, you're not going to just sit here and melt your brain playing video games. Go be with people. And so it forced me to interact. And at 13, my dad made me get a job. He came home and he was like, good news. Tomorrow you start your first day. Like, oh, okay, great. And so I've done every job that you could think of. I've worked at an automotive shop. I've worked in fast food. I've done sales for every kind of industry you can think of. I coach people at the Olympia level. I'd be like, there's not a bit that I haven't done. So every little adventure that I've experienced, I've learned something from that. And I took a college class one time for interpersonal communication, which taught us about reading people and how to properly communicate, how to take eye contact, and how to gauge how interested some of these people are, which really helps with sales. This is a very long way of me getting back to asking you, through everything that you've gone through with meeting people over the years and traveling, is there anything that really stands out in your mind of like, wow, that's one thing that really helped me be better with interacting with people?
So the three biggest things I'm going to say are smile, make eye contact at all times, and listen to listen, not listen to respond. And I think those are probably three of the greatest attributes that you can have.
Those are solid. My dad gave me very similar advice, except he was a little bit more brash. He said, open your ears and shut your mouth.
Yep. There you go. There you go.
But so you relocated to Southern California.
Yeah.
And now you had a little bit of a van tour, but then there was an accident.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to tell people where you are now, go for it.
Yeah.
But if not, secret. You've been moving around. I call them adventures. Every house, every adventure, you learn something. It's a life lesson. And I've moved around more than my fair share. Apartments, homes, you name it. I'm everywhere. Living out of hotels. You find stuff that are non-negotiables, things that you don't want, things that you need, things that just sound kind of appealing. as you've moved or keep moving, what are things that you look for in a house that maybe the younger you didn't really, bat an eye at? Like, I'll give you an example. I'm in my regular day-to-day house, but I have a weekend home in Tahoe. And the Tahoe house, everyone's like, wow, your house is so nice, which it is. It's very nice. I'm very blessed to have it. But there's one thing in the house that drives me up the wall, and I think it is a very valid complaint. It's a 2-story home, and upstairs is the kitchen and the master bedroom and the living room. There's no pantry. You just have regular cupboards. And the lack of pantry is so infuriating, because then you want an area to put your food, your snacks, your canned goods, whatever, especially for the kid. I'm like, dude, I do not want to open the cabinet and see Cheez-Its and fruit snacks the first thing I see. Like, that's my personal gripe, is proper storage, real pantry.
Yeah. Man, so I'm in Montana, like way northwest Montana near the Canadian border. Younger me would never want to be here, in kind of the middle of nowhere. And the house I'm renting, and it's kind of funny you bring this up. God put it on my heart to buy this place. And I'm not sure if it's this place in general or something along this lines, because my next phase of my life, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create brotherhood. And so I want to host men's retreats, these wellness retreats. So, I'll deck out my garage with cold plunge, sauna, have some workout equipment. We'll go hike Glacier National Park. We'll do all this stuff. But really, it's just creating community and creating a space for men to come together, talk about life, feel like they can share things that they wouldn't be able to share with other people in their life. And through that, also like doing some ministry work. So the place that I'm renting is a double-sided townhouse, and the views from the back are absolutely beautiful. The drive there is just so peaceful. I'm just having this hang up because in the way back distance, there's some lights, some lights from some businesses that are like on this main road that are like way in the back. And then the airport's not far from me, and I can see lights from the airport. And it's like, is that enough to make it not peaceful to buy this place? Is it me just worried about those little things? Like, if I'm out here doing a breath work thing, is anyone else going to notice that? Or is that just my neuroticism? So like, I'm looking for properties to buy out here. And it's funny you say that. It's like, what are the things that I absolutely need? But again, my other battle is, this isn't about me. This is about doing God's work and having a purpose, and this place having purpose, not just for my luxury. So yeah, those are all things that I'm kind of considering. But for me personally, I just have to feel peace. Like, I want to come home and just feel peace. So I don't want to, like, when I lived in LA, I had a beautiful home there and my neighborhood was quiet, but the drive to get there, like, it was spiritual warfare. Like, you're driving through Inglewood and parts of South LA, which are just like, people are blowing through red lights. And I'm not just talking about like, oh, the light just turned red and you go through it. I'm talking about getting in the middle lane and driving past 7 or 8 cars that are already stopped and blowing through a red light. And this happened on a daily basis. Road rage everywhere. People throwing bags of McDonald's out the window, just not having respect for anything. So as beautiful as my house was there, every time I had to leave and come back, my peace was just sucked out of me. As far as size, like, I don't need much anymore. I don't want much. I don't want a big house. I'm an OCD clean freak, so small's good. But yeah, just a place that is a peaceful to get to and a peaceful environment when I walk into it is kind of the most important thing for me.
Yeah, having home, I think, for me, and I've said this before, and I think people take it the wrong way. It's like, I hate people coming to my home. And it's not that I don't like people. I enjoy people. I'm a people person. I like talking to people. When I go home, I want to be able to take my shoes off. I want to be able to walk in my house. I'm greeted by my dogs, and I'm at peace. There's no one else's contaminated energy in my element. If people want to get together, let's go to a restaurant. Let's go hang out. Let's go do something. I'm totally game to go do that.
Yeah.
I just don't want you in my house.
I
So
understand.
I think with dealing with men's mental health, it's a tricky thing because so many people have grown up with the old school mentality of men are strong, men don't cry, bottle that shit up and it's going to die with you. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I feel like there's a lot of negativity that can snowball from that. And so for years, when I started dealing with more of the psychological standpoint, for not only for my athletes, but for business development that I do with some of the business coaching, is I always ask people, I want you to find a place, or it could be an activity. It's me time. If you go to a location, it's just for you. You don't bring family, you don't bring a girlfriend, you don't bring your friends. That place is just for you. Find something that you can go to where everything else melts away. I have a particular spot, and when I go there, it's one of the few places that I can leave my phone in my car and I don't worry about it blowing up from 20,000 questions. I'm completely welded into that spot and nothing can get me to break it. And I always implore people to find something for themselves, whether if you're blessed to have a location like that, great. By all means, God bless you. I hope everyone can find that. Maybe it's an activity that you do, something that brings you peace, that when you do it, you feel like Vin Diesel, that you live your life 1/4 mile at a time, but something to take you away from your own rat race. Because once you can separate yourself from the day-to-day commute, life responsibilities, whatever you have going on, the daunting bills that are piling up, if you can take a step back from that and let your guard down, I tell people, if you let your guard down, imagine it's a dam lifting up and you're letting all your stress leave your body. If you can get the stress to calm down, I guarantee you, all those hard things are going to feel a lot less hard. So I'm going to wrap it up with this last little bit. And again, I
Yeah.
really appreciate you taking the time to come and do this. But as someone who focuses a lot on recovery and someone who's been injured quite a few times, is there a particular bit of equipment or is there a particular service when it comes to recovery? Something aside from the newbie, because obviously we've gone over that and all the benefits of it. But is there anything in particular that you're like, oh man, that's pure money?
Hyperbaric chamber.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In my mind, I think hyperbaric chamber probably one of the best tools that you can have for recovery, for wellness, for anti-aging, for brain health, for everything. They are not cheap, but they're probably one of the most beneficial health tools out there, from my knowledge. And I have some friends that are leaning into some other things, but from all the research and everything I've done, hyperbaric chambers is the key moneymaker to overall recovery, wellness, brain health, you name it.
Man, not gonna lie, was not expecting that answer. I totally thought you were gonna tell me that you were all about the cryotherapy, which I enjoy too.
Yeah.
But man, the hyperbolic chamber. So for people, I know this, but for people who don't know what that is, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so essentially it's a chamber that you climb into and you have a compressor that drives air in there and you're going to increase atmospheric pressure. So most like soft shells, you can get up to like 1.7, which is 1.7 times our normal atmospheric pressure. The steel chamber ones can get up to 3 times our atmospheric pressure. And essentially what that does is that makes our red blood cells uh, make them able to carry more oxygen. So while you're in there, you're also breathing in condensed oxygen. So now you're allowing super oxygenated red blood cells to go through your entire body and heal your body. And when you're in there for at least 90 minutes, you also get stem cell activation. So you're releasing new stem cells, which are going to go through your body and find areas that are damaged and everything else, and are going to help the healing process as well. So whatever it is, like viruses, illnesses, disease, post-surgical, or just want to look good and feel good, getting in a hyperbaric chamber, I'm going to say is probably hands down the most beneficial wellness tool and recovery tool out there.
They use this a lot for cancer treatments as well.
Yeah.
People that are going through radiation, they will also utilize that to help with the imbalance of the red and white blood cells. You talked about something that was really interesting, and I figured I'd chime in with a level of nerdiness because I think it's
Yeah.
fun to do. Talking about the body generating or being able to uptake more oxygen into the thing. But the pressure chamber is also helping the body stimulate red blood cell production. But if you don't have access to this and your goal is to increase the oxygen circulation through the body, I can help for a fraction of the cost.
Yes.
If you drink carbonated beverage, the body goes through a process called the Bohr effect. And it's when the body takes in the carbon dioxide and that it helps there. Picture your body's like a car and you've got an air fuel ratio. When the body takes that in, it says, oh, hey, there's an imbalance. We need more oxygen to circulate through the body. So it will allow the body to uptake more oxygen into the red blood cells. Now, while it is a temporary effect, if you time it correctly, your workouts are noticeably better.
Yeah.
So for the
Yeah. So I
price of an
actually,
energy drink or even just, a bubbly water, a San Pellegrino,
right.
it's all going to do great things.
Yeah. I actually just started playing with my buddy. Ed's got a clinic down in Scottsdale, a CO2 device. So you literally put a CO2 cancer and you're breathing in CO2 and there's certain protocols and stuff. Then there's a whole body suit with it. So yeah, along the lines of what you said, to increase the oxygen in your body, you actually want to bring increased CO2 in there.
Yeah. No, I think I've heard a lot of people in the fitness industry say like, oh, you have to trick the body. Like the body is very smart. You might stimulate parts of it, but you are not going to trick the body.
Yeah. Yeah. Smarter than we think we are.
Yeah. Well, Brad, I really appreciate this. This was a great one. Lots of great information. So for everything that you've got going on moving forward with the men's retreat, I know that you're putting together some Zoom calls right now. How can people get a hold of you? How can people find you? Plug everything that you got.
The best way to get a hold of everything I'm doing is through Instagram. It's Brad B. Rowe. So everything I post about or everything I'm launching for coaching, these men's community Zoom group calls, it's a free service that I'm doing, is all just through my Instagram, Brad B. Rowe.
Awesome. Everyone, go check out Brad. Get on some of these Zoom calls. Feel better about yourself. Be a better dad. Be a better husband.
Amen.
Just enjoy life more.
Yes, sir.
Until next time, we're out.